So we'll move straight on now to Parry Thomas, former head of Save Mona Vale Hospital, and he's here for one last push to safeguard hospital services in Pittwater.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody here, and thank you for coming on a cold winter's night. I want to start by saying I'm going to give you some suburb names. Okay, I'm just going to mention a few places like Dural, North Rocks, Rydalmere, Strathfield, Mascot, South Coogee. I could also say almost Parramatta, but I won't put it in. And I want you to think about those suburbs because I'm going to come back to you later on and tell you the reason I raised those. I want you to think about what they might have in common. Now look, it's interesting, I note that we've had a mention tonight already about our member Rob Stokes and his apology because he's unable to attend during the school holidays. I note, however, he was quite capable of getting a couple of press releases out, one to do with the Beeline and another to do with the ambulance station at Mona Vale Hospital. I also note that in the release about the ambulance station at Mona Vale Hospital, one of the great excuses put in there was because ambulances have been bypassing Mona Vale Hospital for 10 years. Now, let me tell you why. Because they've dumbed it down. They started dumbing it down in the late 90s. They've consistently underfunded it. That hospital refused to provide the services. The net result is when you get crook, they've got to take you somewhere else anyway. And the thing that's crazy about this is that this whole debate was never, and I stress, from the health department's point of view, never about delivering good health services to the Northern Beaches. That may surprise you, but it was never about that. It was about, in those days when we were starting the fights in the early 2000s, it was about taking the pressure off Royal North Shore Hospital. Royal North Shore was a basket case, and they needed to find ways to stop people going to Royal North Shore. Now, that's where I find this dilemma with the dumbing down of these hospitals. The reason they dumbed it down is they wanted to move that hospital closer to Royal North Shore. Because remember, if you move it closer to Royal North Shore, you stop people at French's Forest, at Killarney, at possibly Mossman, even Forestville, maybe Roseville, taking the trip to Royal North Shore. So you immediately take pressure off. And they're building a new hospital at Royal North Shore now, but remember, they have sold the land around Royal North Shore for both residential and commercial development. There isn't any more room to expand Royal North Shore. If they need to add services there, they've just run out of space. So a hospital put up on French's Forest, not only a hospital, but a private hospital because they don't have to worry about managing it, then that takes the pressure off Royal North Shore. Doesn't do diddly squat for us as a community, but it helps them. I'd like to say here that there are a couple of things that I think are particularly important about this fight that we've had for near 20 years. And that is, without the support of our community council, Pittwater Council, we wouldn't even have that hospital today, in my view. The decision would have been made 10 years earlier, they would have forced it 10 years earlier, and we wouldn't have that building today. So, you know, this community owes a very significant debt of gratitude to Pittwater Council. And I can tell you, if we had the greater Warringah Council that we have today, we wouldn't have it either. The whole fight for Mona Vale Hospital was structured along the lines of divide and conquer the community. That's the way Northern Sydney Health played it. And they were called Northern Sydney Health in those days. They lined up Warringah and they lined up Manly against Mona Vale. And I learned a lot in that time. I learnt that there'd always been a Mona Vale versus Manly battle. They'd always funded Manly Hospital with almost twice the amount of annual funds they funded Mona Vale Hospital with. For many, many years. We were getting 6%, they were getting 13% of the Northern Sydney budget. Now, you know, that's no way to treat this community. Now, we set ourselves an objective when we started, say, Mona Vale Hospital Committee, of upgrading and retaining Mona Vale Hospital as a key component of health delivery on the Northern Beaches. We did, however, give ourselves a bottom line, and that was to protect the land. Because there is no doubt in my mind, and no doubt in the minds of all of the people on our committee and many other people I've dealt with, that exactly what they did to the Prince Henry Hospital site down south with Little Bay is what we would have here at Mona Vale if the government got its way. And that is residential high-rise. Now, I have to say, this is not political. I'm not bashing the Libs, I'm not bashing Labor. It was Labor who were in power at the time we had these challenges, started these challenges. It was the Labor government who first mooted the getting rid of Mona Vale and moving it. And it's the Liberals at the time who stood up and helped us and advocated the retention of Mona Vale Hospital. It was the Liberals who said it would be upgraded and supported as part of a network of hospitals on the Northern Beaches. And that's very convenient when you're in opposition. And it's a Liberal who we now have who said they were going to upgrade it and got elected on that basis with this community. Bloody appalling to me. The Labor Party and the Liberals are political opportunists. And I have to say, what I've learned from this is that political parties are the antithesis of democracy. The process of planning, the process of dealing with the community was very challenging. We had a, what would I call it, an executive committee of about a dozen people. And we had a working committee of about 100 people. And we had a community that contributed and worked. We'd have people that we could ring up, email, contact, and get them to write letters, get them to ring radio stations, get them to do letterbox drops. This community spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. We spent, through our committee, hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting this campaign. We had the incredible support of our council. I mentioned it earlier, but I cannot tell you the support the council gave in terms of advice, guidance, facilitating access to places like Rat Park and those things. We had 6,000, as you saw in the movie, at that rally. The people who supported us, including John Brogden, I might say, in that era, who got up and supported us, did an incredible job and have continued, most of them continued to fight very strongly for our hospital. I must say there is nothing wrong with the hospital. It was clearly clarified there. It was clearly. The hospital is structurally sound. We had spent a lot of time ourselves researching that. It is so easy, and interestingly about the construction of that hospital, it is one of the first buildings, I think, in Australia to use what lightweight concrete construction, which means that it's basically pier with slabs. So you can build all the floors, you can rip all the walls out, you've still got a structure and you can refit it any way you like. People say, what about the asbestos? We took the asbestos out of the maternity ward, out of the paediatric ward, redeveloped those. Not a problem. That hospital is eminently fixable, upgradable and usable. Not only that, the hospital was actually, now I don't have it as a graphic other than that, but let me tell you that there are plans, and I've seen the model, to expand the hospital and bring it up to a level 5. Those plans were developed back in the 70s, 80s, when there was some vision in the health structure in New South Wales. Let me talk a little bit about this, this new hospital. Mona Vale is about 165 beds. Yeah, probably haven't got them all open these days, but it's not too far off that. Manly was about 217 beds, approximately, giving a total of around about 380. I hear the new hospital is having around 480 odd beds, mixture of public-private. We get spin from the government that says there are 200 more beds at the hospital than we've currently got between our two hospitals. Well, that doesn't actually make sense when you do the numbers. The reality is they're about approximately the same, maybe less. But think about this for a second. Where is that hospital being moved to? What's the current catchment for the hospitals? The current catchment for the two hospitals on the northern beaches is fundamentally the beach strip. West maybe to Balgowlah, and yet I know plenty of people from Balgowlah who go to North Shore. So the strip is the catchment area. We have now moved that hospital west. We have now incorporated a catchment area of, as I think mentioned some of the places earlier, French's Forest, Forestville, Allambie, all of these additional areas, possibly even Mossman, possibly even areas of Roseville. That is now the catchment for the new hospital, and yet we have got the same number of beds. So what that tells me is we're going to run out of capacity pretty bloody quickly. And the other thing it tells me is that if that's the case, why in the name of God don't we upgrade and run Mona Vale as a level 3? Why don't we continue it as an acute hospital to provide the health services this community deserves? Because our population is growing, our needs are increasing, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, what's the future? The future's been pretty clear to us, hasn't it? They're going to knock it down. No! That's their plan. We can try and save it, and we should. I had a fallback position, and the fallback position was if you pulled it out, keep the area as open space, because you're sure as hell going to have to build another one. I agree with what's being said here tonight, that the strategy to strategically place things and buildings around that site will eliminate its ability to be rebuilt. We must not allow it to be pulled down. We must demand it's grown, it's upgraded. We must demand decent health services for this community. Okay, those suburbs. What's the relevance of those suburbs? Well, let me ask you a question. If you lived in any of those suburbs, would you consider it was reasonable that you be asked to go to French's Forest for your health services? You wouldn't, would you? Okay, let me list a few more then. Hornsby Heights, Pennant Hills, Carlingford, Five Dock, Camperdown, Bondi. Would it be reasonable to ask those people to travel to French's Forest to go to hospital? No. And you know what that is? First of all, the first list of places were the people at Palm Beach. The second list of places were the people at Avalon. So even if you live at Avalon, you're being asked to travel to French's Forest, which is as far as asking someone from Bondi to French's Forest. From Camperdown, from Five Dock, from Beecroft. Just goddamn unreasonable. Thank you. The only reason I resigned was I felt I couldn't continue in a role that I had been asked to take by Rob Stokes because that was the time that he betrayed us and we merged our council with the greater Warringah debacle. So I think that there are two key elements that we need to be addressing, and one's you want to protect this place called Pittwater, including the services. you need Pittwater Council as well. Thank you. I'll hand it back. Thank you very much for your time.